Today's episode is brought to you by Freedom Project Academy. Looking for a K-12 classical online school built on Judeo-Christian values? FPA is enrolling now for the fall. Request your free information packet at freedomforschool.com. That's freedom, F-O-R, school.com.
It's time to get educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. This is the Dr. Duke Show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show. Before we get started, as always, please hit that share button so we can educate more patriots around the country. Okay, we're kicking things off with some caffeine. Vicki McKenna and Culturecast. Vicki, good to see you.
Hey, great to be here.
You know, it just seems like when we talk education, the whole system is imploding. We're now in the middle of this libs of TikTok scandal, right? We've got all the stuff happening here, which also, by the way, drives me crazy. The idea that you've got a woman who's simply taking their own videos and showing to people now is a doxable offense. But maybe all we're suffering, maybe all of our educational woes are ultimately the result of Satan. Because here we have,
well, could be
after-school Satan clubs. Talk about this.
Well, I guess it's a thing, and this isn't the first time I've seen a school announce the establishment of an after-school Satan club. It's a satanic temple club. A parent was pushing for this. Of course, the school signed off on this. This is in Pennsylvania. And let's just imagine for a second a group of students with a parent in leadership want to have an after-school group sponsored by the school to learn about and promote traditional marriage. How do you think that might go over? Or how about a group of kids who wanted to have a school-sponsored rosary club? You think that would go over well? And of course, the answer is, of course, it would not. This is the only type of tolerance we are expected to have is tolerance for things that tear down Judeo-Christian principles. And then they'll also, of course, cloak themselves in the blanket of free speech as they deny it to the rest of us. So this is pretty typical. I don't know why parents still have their kids in these, dens of iniquity, but apparently it's going to take some time before people feel strong enough to leave the schools.
Well, let's take a look at the video that'll explain it a little bit further.
In 2001, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled religious groups could operate after-class programs in public schools, which allowed for a proliferation of the Good News Christian clubs, now about 5,000 nationwide.
We're not trying to be against anyone. We're simply trying to take the biblical good news of the gospel to the children.
As a counterbalance, the Satanic Temple said it intends to open more clubs in schools where the Christian clubs are meeting.
What's your objection to the Good News clubs?
Well, the Good News clubs, we felt, were particularly troublesome in the way that they do explicitly try to indoctrinate children. They do try to prepare the children to proselytize to others.
The Satanic Temple says it is really an atheist organization. Despite this statue depicting its leader, followers don't believe in spiritual evil or the devil, who the Bible warns is a master of lies and deception.
They're doing the work of Satan whether they want to acknowledge it or not, because this is what Satan would do. Satan, the term itself, means evil, and this is not the influence you want to bring upon your children.
Yeah, and one of the things I want to start with, Vicki, is...
How is it, by the way, that Satanists always say, we're Satanists? Well, not really.
But that's what I was going to
get.
get.
We're not really Satanists. We call ourselves Satanists. We say, Hail Satan. We worship Satan, but then... but not really.
Yeah, and that's where I was going with this. I mean, on the one hand, they're getting their Christmas statues of Satan all over the place at Christmas time because they call themselves a religion. And then they turn around and say, but it's a religion in the God of which we do not believe. So they're having their cake and they're eating it too. And that seems to me to be a legitimate way to isolate them from these kind of things. If you call yourself a religion and you dedicate your religion to Satan and that you don't believe in Satan, then you don't really qualify for these kinds of public accommodations, number one. And number two, you and I have spent a lot of time talking about C.S. Lewis's That Hideous Strength, all about a demonic attack. It's a dystopian novel written in the 40s about how when you see science and reason being co-opted in the name of really tyranny. I mean, there's something very creepy about the satanic culture. Who they got the images, they're very big on abortion. They fight for radical abortion rights.
They call it a sacrament.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. If you're a religion, you're a religion, and so you are now demanding that schools authorize the worship of evil. Now, you can call it whatever you like, but when you are declaring that abortion is a sacrament, that's evil, and that's what these schools are signing off on. And Good News Christian Club aside, I think students ought to try to see if they can't organize a school-sponsored with a school sponsor in the form of a teacher or another staffer. The club, the traditional marriage club, the white heterosexual male club. Let's see how truly tolerant and willing to coexist these educators actually are. They're totally fine with the Satan Club because the Satan Club promotes all of the left-wing politics, which ought to tell you something about left-wing politics. But if you actually try to push the envelope a little bit further than happy, bland Christian talk, you're probably going to run into some roadblocks.
With all the censorship taking place on social media platforms, we've made it easy to keep up with your favorite content. Simply download the Freedom Project Media app in your app store. Get access to 18 new videos a week, plus thousands of archived shows, lecture series, and educational animations. Download the Freedom Project Media app on your Apple TV, Roku, tablet, or phone, and make sure you allow for notifications to keep you informed.
All right, back with Vicki McKenna for Culture Cast. Vicki, I want to continue this conversation. I mentioned That Hideous Strength. It's all about a satanic plot under the guise of science to take over the world for Satan. It's really a great read if you have a chance to find it, read the book. But we go back to this talk about Satanism. They keep marketing themselves as a religion when it's comfortable for them or effective for them, as a kind of belief system when they need to use that trump card. But when you push them a little further, they keep insisting they're just a humanist organization.
It's just a humanist. We're just atheists.
Well,
no, except that you have the idols and you're making the sacrifices. And you, again, I mean, the idea that this is being tolerated, by the way, it's being tolerated in order to promote the worship of evil to elementary school kids. Remember, this school we're talking about is an elementary school that wants to set up a Satan club, but it's not really about Satan. We're just calling it, Satanism. And it's at an elementary school. This idea that it's just the same as anything else. And it's just a counter to Christianity, or it's just, it's just a club. You don't have to join it if you don't want to. Except that, again, I'm going to go back to this. If kids wanted to form a Rosary Club or a Eucharist Club or a traditional marriage club or a respect for, white heterosexual male club, you have to find teacher sponsors for this. And, that would be harder to do, I think, than finding someone who is willing to just simply turn and look the other way to a club about Satanism. You're basically trying to create the conditions where only one side can claim that they have any authority to speak freely. The rest of us are supposed to just shut up. And that's what this guy is essentially saying. The problematic Christian club at the school, because they're actually talking about Christianity. And that's the only side that's being really presented, is that, well, they're talking about Christianity, therefore we should be able to have a Satan club.
And I think you hit on something really important. This would be like having an Islamic club after school, and then something coming down the road saying, we don't like Muslims, right? This is an anti-Muslim club.
We don't like Muslim club.
Exactly. Because Satan is the animus, the adversary of God in both the Old and New Testament. So when you create a Satan club, which you then turn around and say isn't really about Satan, you're using biblical language to tell people that the Bible has no usage. It's so convoluted that it's almost something that would be, demonic in its origins.
Well, it is. Listen, the Satanists are not just rational atheists. The Satanists are Satanists, or they wouldn't call themselves Satanists. You can be a rational atheist and have all kinds of different clubs you can join. You don't have to join the Temple of Satan to do this. But, the idea that they think that they're going to be able to sell sort of a benign agnosticism or a benign atheism, that isn't what happens. People don't just suddenly adopt this, a lack of belief and then move forward, as rational and moral people. They fill it with something. The belief vacuum is going to be filled with something, not rational thought and humanism that looks very much like Judeo-Christian morality. It's filled with any number of things from paganism to the blind worship of crystals to smoking a lot of dope and video gaming all day. It's filled with something.
Well, what it is, it's anarchic, right? Its job is not to really construct a satanic worldview. The worldview is already there. The one they keep harping about is reason, rationality, atheism. There are so many more intellectually sound ways to approach atheism through than through Satan's temple. So
sure,
they're not building anything. All they're doing is using scientific rationalism under the guise of Satanism to attack Christianity.
Agree. I totally agree with you. And incidentally, rational thought, the concept of rational thought didn't come from atheism. The concept of rational thought actually was something else born out of the influence of Judeo-Christian belief. But so again, you hijack all of the language and all of the themes and all of the philosophy from Christianity. You strip out Christ. You replace Christ with Satan, and then you want to essentially destroy everything that has ever been created since the birth of Christ, and you're calling yourself we're just a rational humanist club. It's again, the only thing they've got to actually hang their coats on, I think, is the idea that I guess. If we tolerate one religion, we're going to have to tolerate a lot of religions. But the problem is that they don't tolerate other religions, and it is not as tolerated in the school system as something as lunacy, as much lunacy as the Satan Club is for little kids.
Well, we also know that C.S. Lewis said in the Screwtape Letters that God created everything. There was nothing that Satan could create at all. And so therefore, the purpose of Satan is simply to take apart what God has put together. That certainly seems like a pretty good definition of what this atheist club is all about. In the name of Satan, they are deconstructing, like you said, it's not just Christianity or church or evangelicalism. It's 2,000 years of Western culture they want to rip apart because of its influence.
They want to use the lessons of Western culture to rip Western culture apart. I'm wondering what they think they're going to be replacing all of this stuff with. I mean, again, you're using the thought processes, critical thinking, rational thought, all of these things, and sort of a basic understanding of Judeo-Christian morality. You're using all of that to tear it down, and somehow thinking that anything good is going to ever survive, and it won't, of course, because anarchy ultimately leads to totalitarianism. You can't control anarchy by definition, and so you're going to have a strong man declare him or herself, the totalitarian ruler, and that's what I think maybe they don't see, and maybe they do and think it's going to be absolutely awesome.
Today's show is sponsored by our friends at MyPillow. Save up to 66% on all items at MyPillow.com when you use the code Dr. Duke. That's DRDUKE. Support this show by supporting a great American company.
All right, it's time for Trending Left. We've compiled some of the craziest stories making waves across the internet for your viewing pleasure. We start with a gay woman who says parents should stay out of the classroom and let teachers educate children on sexual orientation and gender identity at young ages because not doing so makes kids homophobic and hurts the rainbow mafia. Watch this stable example of public school education.
We don't like this. My community specifically does not like this. You want to know why personally I don't like this? Because when it's the parents' problem, that's how you get homophobic kids. That's how you get kids like me with internalized homophobia until they're like 18 or 19 because they finally started going to therapy. If my parents had their way, I wouldn't know about the gay community or my own legitimate sexual identity. I came out to them when I was 16. You want to know what they told me? They told me I was going to unalive myself because of this. I was an already depressed teenager. So when you say it's the parents' problem, understand that the parents are not going to make the best decision. They're not going to educate their kids. If it weren't for public school, I wouldn't know about the gay community. Unless it's a private school, parents need to stay the out of classroom.
So all that messed up personality stuff is because she went to public schools? That's where she learned this? This is the definition of Stockholm Syndrome. So, speaking of crazy people, we have a teacher who claims the best way to teach her kids consent is to allow them to choose their identity.
The most controversial way I teach my kids consent is that they all choose their own gender identity because it's every person's right to be who they are. It's that simple.
The neck tattoo really sells your integrity. Next, we head to New Jersey, where a parent and teacher gave other teachers a sneak peek at how bad this gender stuff is. This is actually a concerned teacher about what's happening in your kid's classroom coming up in the fall at age 6.
So here's an example of next year what a first grade lesson might look like. It's called Pink, Blue, Purple, and you can see it's slated for first grade to take about 30 minutes, and the range of ways people express their gender. So the objective is to define gender, gender identity, and gender role stereotypes. You can pause and try to read the scripted piece for the teacher. They're to hold up 2 greeting cards for a newborn baby and make a Venn diagram showing the stereotypes of boys and girls, and then talk to them about how if you could feel like you're a girl, even if you have what's called boy parts or girl parts, and you can feel like a girl even if you have boy parts.
So, in other words, you got all summer to decide how you're going to homeschool kids and how you're not sending them back to this gender mill. Finally, let's wrap things up by answering the question, what does all this mean for the future? I give you Exhibit A. At the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, the Labor and Delivery Department has updated their birthing forms. As you can see, on the top of the sheet, we start with birth parents worksheet. Back in the old days, we called that mom. And further down, we have the question, what parent label would you like printed on your child's certificate? Mother, father, or parent? So now hospitals and medical facilities and the AMA itself, once trusted to follow actual science, are caving to the rainbow mafia by citing men can give birth to children nonsense on all of their medical forms. Again, when the medical establishment chooses fairy tale over science, we are in a very bad place. It's time for Reclaiming America with our counterculture mom, Tina Griffin. Tina, so good to see you, looking very sporty. I'm going to start calling you Sporty Spice.
Hey, that's hilarious. That brings back the memories from when I was like 3 years old. Go for it, Dr. Duke. I got to come up with something creative for you now.
Go with the standard stud. We finally have somebody putting their money where their mouth is. Jeremy Boring and the guys at the Daily Wire have decided to create their own children's channel to rival the idiocy that we now know as Disney. Talk about this.
Yeah, well, it all comes to drain the dollars for Disney, people. Drain those dollars for Disney. Finally, a killer solution. There's actually a lot out there, but at least this one's getting in the mix. Parents will soon have a new alternative to the woke children's shows, Dr. Duke, that keep getting pushed out by the leftist companies like Disney. Conservative news outlet The Daily Wire, like you just said, has announced it will invest a minimum of $100 million over the next 3 years into a line of live action and animated children's entertainment on its streaming platform. I just wish it was coming out sooner. It actually comes out next spring, 2023. We need it now. But I want to let parents know right now, just heard about a code. If they use the code DWKids for Daily Wire Kids, DWKids, they get 20% off when they sign up, and you can go check that out at Daily Wire. But, it needed to happen, Dr. Duke. It just needed to happen.
I'm proud to tell you that 3 months ago, we hired our first 2 writers under DW Entertainment, Eric Branscombe and Ethan Nicole. Now, these are 2 writers who came to us by way of the Babylon Bee, one of the funniest websites in America today. But before that, they were the writers on VeggieTales, the animated series. These guys have a deep history in animated kids content that has our values. There's 6 scripts in to our very first animated kids show, which is called Chilla Time. Chilla Time is a family of chinchillas who homeschool their kids. Our second piece of DW Kids content is called Doodles with Noodles. Doodles with Noodles is actually a live-action puppet show in which our very own Ethan Nicole will teach kids how to do drawings. alongside his friend, the puppet, Noodles.
I'm actually really excited because we need some decent comedy, and I really hope that parents get involved and watch this with your kids. And also, I'm just going to say it, reach out to Daily Wire. They might want more show content. We've got a lot of teens, a lot of college students that want to get into graphic art, designing. Even my 10-year-old Levi loves creating characters. So let's get the kids in the mix to create their own programming. Oh, yeah. Dr. Duke.
Can you imagine in this day and age a TV show, a TV network for children that is 100% crotch free?
Woo!
It's a miracle. It's a miracle.
Son, listen to this. Son.
Well, and the nice thing is that you've got the Daily Wire, who is completely sane, has the right values, and they've got a ton of money that they can do to float this. I'm telling you, I'm going to make the shout out. You make the shout out too. Even if you don't have children, watch and favor these shows. Make sure you spend some time just paying attention, because the more support we give them as a country, even if we don't have kids, the more support, the more likely they are to survive. And with that, we need this revolution in the marketplace.
Absolutely. Let's drain those dollars from Disney. Once again, I just want to say why this needed to happen. What basically is going on in the news is there was a meeting recently, an executive producer for Disney bragged about increasing queerness in their content, as well as having a not-so-secret gay agenda at Disney. This is all over the place. We have the proof. We have the links. We have the videos. It was also revealed in that meeting that the company has altered gendered language in the theme parks to come up with more gender-neutral terms. So if I use, hey, son, come here, hey, daughter, am I going to get handcuffed? No more Disney for me, our family, we're done. No. So we have to support, just what you said, Daily Wire, what they're rolling out. And I would even say, what do you guys need so we can speed this up and get this out there now and not spring of next year?
So Tina, Go ahead and tell us where they can find more information about your app.
Just download the Counterculture Mom app, click on Premium, you'll get all of our notifications. There's also an Inform Us section in there. Just click on that hourglass. If you see dirt that we need to know about, we will pump it out so the thousands of parents that have our app will be able to know that this content is coming out or was just released. Also, let us know about the positive entertainment, like what Daily Wire is pumping out, because there is a lot out there. Mainstream media is not going to promote it because if kids didn't have sex, abstinence doesn't sell, Planned Parenthood wouldn't be making cash. Let's drain the dollars from these corrupt, evil people and invest in our kids to get this country back on track for them.
If you have a question for Dr. Duke and Katie, please send it our way by emailing askduke@fpeusa.org.
And that's going to do it for this show. I'm Dr. Duke. Until next time, y'all stay educated, all right?